Okay, so we have made the grid of points with the sequence to x and y, and now we are assigning those points to the center points of these circle radiuses, and as you can see, they're too big, so maybe I'll give them a smaller number, so maybe 0.5. That goes to the radius. A bit smaller, 0.4. Okay, now if I connect my points to the get item as index, I want to see what it gives me. So first of all, let's review and see what the structure of the list is. So points to the watch, you can see there is an index 0. It has 10 other items underneath that. So when I say, okay, go in, this is the list, and the index I want to give in is, let's say 0, and I give this to the points, center point of the circles, you can see it's getting all the 0 indexes in all the lists. So this guy, that guy, and that guy, and all the way to the end. And it's giving me that. If I go to 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, it will just going through all of them. And as soon as I'm past 9, it will go yellow because it's more than the number it has and it's not working. So I'll limit my maximum to 9 so that I'm sure I'm running in a safe environment. That's how the data tree is working for now. The key here is to flatten your data tree. So now when I flatten everything and I watch it, I can see instead of having lists and sublists, I've got a list going from 0 to 99, so 100 items. They're all in one list. So now instead of what I was doing before, if I give this to that and put the maximum on 99, now you can see I can go through all the circles in my all the points and give them circles. I could also give it a sequence. So let's define a sequence here and give it a few numbers. So I'm just gonna get a watch again, get this there, give this a slider to the amount. So I'm getting maybe 15 points. I want the steps to be another slider, which is smaller, so not all the way to there, maybe 4. Becoming too big, so that's limited to 10. Now this is smaller, okay, and this is 5. Okay, now if I give this sequence to my index instead of this single number that I was doing before, it gives me a series of numbers, by a series of points that I can put circles on. I can make more of them, I can make the distances between them more or less, and get different points and assign circles to them. And as you can see, they are in this order. I'm going to delete the things that I don't need to make it a little bit more cleaner. There is another interesting function here. A lot of times when you're scripting, you're using randomizers in different forms to give you the variation. There is a randomizer here called shuffle. It will, as it says, it will shuffle the list. So when I have a flattened list, I give it to the shuffle. It will just move stuff around randomly. And now I can give this to get my item, and now we can see all these circles are happening just randomly around for no reason because it was shuffled. Now I can assign a given number of points that I know on various random points on that grid and assign circles to them. And that's how it works. Okay, any questions for this? For the ones who couldn't make it happen, what was the issue? Do you guys know how to do it now? Is it clear for all of you how it works? Anything at all? Okay, great. I feel like you're my sidekick. You should give me the jokes or something. All right. So I'm gonna show you guys two more examples, and if there's time, I'll start with the third one, and then we'll call it a day. So the first example I want to show you, because we have seen a lot of grids and circles so far, I'm going to show you more grids and circles. So we are going to make a perforated panel of circles with randomized radiuses. So before doing any script, you need to have a strategy in your mind how you're making this thing possible. So I'm making a grid, I'm putting circles in, I give randomized numbers to the radiuses of those circles. Then I need to find a way to intersect a base plane that I draw with those circles, and then extrude it out to give the thickness. So let's see if we can make this work. So first of all, as surprisingly enough, we're gonna do a point by coordinates in a grid. So this time, instead of a sequence, I'm gonna do a range for a reason that I'm gonna show you in a minute. So the range will start from a number that is 0. Will end at a different number that in this case could be 60, and a step that is in this case 10. And if I control B and go back there, you can see how it works. So now, why I don't have a grid and I have a line, you all should know. It's saying it should be a cross product. Now I've got my grid. Next thing is to assign a circle to them. You all know how to do that by now. So circle by radius, center point there, works for now. Next thing is that I want to make a rectangle that goes around these guys and make the panel for me. So I'll just move this to the side, go back here, type in rectangle to see, oops, what was that? Rectangle. To see how I can draw that. So I'm looking for a rectangle by width and length. So create a rectangle centered at input plane root with input width and length. So that's what I'm looking for. So here's a rectangle. I want to give it a number for its dimensions. In this case, I'm just going to give it 120. So width and length are 120, and this should show up in our environment. And it's not. That's fine, we'll figure it out. So maybe it's missing that plane. So let me try and see if there is another rectangle thing that we can use by width and length. Let's use this instead of that. And give it the width and the length. There we go. Now we got a rectangle and we got a grid of circles that we're gonna cut holes through. The problem here is that the circles are not centered in regard to this rectangle. How we can do it? Because we were using the range, we have the option of starting from a negative number instead of a positive one. So going to -30 to +30. Now we have centralized our grid. I'm just gonna zoom in so that you guys can see a bit better. Now this is the center and everything works fine. I've got my points and I've got the circles on them. I want to get a watch to actually see what is happening here. Okay, so it is still in a list of in a data tree, and it's giving me all the circles. I would give a slider for now to the radiuses, and I would limit that to a number so that it doesn't go very crazy. I can control those. Okay, there. Next thing is to make a surface out of this rectangle and cut those circles out of it. So there's a surface we want to make, and in this case I'm using a surface by patch. So this is kind of similar to the planar surface you were making in Grasshopper. So this is almost the same thing. So rectangle closed curve is the input. The output is the surface is making here. As you can see, there is a surface made. Next thing, I need to cut these circles out of that. So I would look in for intersect. And I would go down to intersect all. So what it's asking for is it geometry intersect all? Yes. So it's looking for the geometry, and it's looking for the next thing to cut from. So I think if I put in the surface and the circles, it should cut that out of it, but actually it's not going to work for a weird reason. So instead of just putting in the circles, you need to put in a trimmed geometry. So I'm going to trim these guys first and then give them to that. So I would go looking for geometry, trim geometry. Then I would connect everything to this. So my geometry is my surface. Then I would have I'm not sure if this is the right thing. It looks like the right thing. The circles are the tools, and the picks should be the points. Now, instead of that, I would give this to my entity of the intersection. Now this should be cut. Doesn't look like it, but it should be. Maybe the reason is that the list was not flattened at two different points that I had. So one problematic part was after I made all the points, it was good to flatten them because I don't need the complication of the data tree, and it's not even working because that should be connected to the picks. Now the second part that I can flatten is after I made the geometry. I will flatten this and I will give that to the entity here. It may be cut now, so let's test. Let's hide everything. So I don't want these guys to show up, so I would right click and turn off the preview. I would right click and turn off the preview here. I would right click and turn off the preview there. Now I can select this surface that you can see I've got a surface with holes in it. The previews of these guys was coming into the way and making it a bit difficult to see what's actually happening, so I just hit them all. Now the last thing I want to do is to thicken that surface. So thicken is an easy function you can use here, which is similar to extrusion. So you would give it a surface and a thicken value, which is set to 1 by default. I'll just change that to maximum being 10 and start playing with that a little bit. So I can thicken that more or less. So the result that I have is a perforated panel. Now this is the actual last thing to do. So I want to do randomized radiuses on this. We will talk about attractors next tutorial, but for now I'm just gonna do something very quick. So a random number, double values, a random list. Okay, so what this guy does, it gets an amount and then gives me that many randomly generated numbers. So in order to know how many circles I've got to make random radiuses for, I need to use the count widget. So I would give in all these points after being flattened to it. Now it shows that I have number 49, so that's probably the number of circles that I have. It's a little bit suspicious, but I'll just go with that. I will give this to the number, and now this random will be the radiuses. So now you can see I've got a randomly radiused circle perforated panel kind of thing. My English is turning off, but this is kind of what we're trying to make.